Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 46 of the Lord Ninja Choke MMA Picks podcast. Today, we're here to break down Bautista versus Oliveira. It's the first card back at the Apex in the new year, first card at the Apex with Paramount. So, looking forward to doing the fight focus and our bets. As always, I'm joined by Josh in Australia, Will in the UK, and yeah, here's the card. It's a really interestingly lined card in terms of lots of what I would consider to be very strangely lined fights. Would you agree, chaps?
Yeah, I mean there are a few fights here that kind of raise my eyebrow when it comes to the moneyline odds. Like Jacoby being a 1.5-ish favorite compared to Walker or fighting Walker. Julius Walker is shit. I don't think he deserves any kind of respect. I mean, respect, sure, but like not betting respect, right? There's no real money to be made on the Donchenko-Moreno fight because the odds there are pretty weird anyway. But when I looked over the whole card, I did notice like a lot of underdogs, you know, that should be that should be favorites, right? Like Nurmagomedov being an underdog against Basharat makes some sense, but like also not really. Like it's a very close fight. You know, we got Kuniev Almeida, which Will's going to break down later on, and that one kind of also doesn't make sense to me. But other than that, you know, it's a very messy card to even think about. So I'm just treating this as like a you know, just a regular randomly built card. What about you, Will? What do you got?
Well, when you started off by singling out Dustin Jacoby, I was worried you were going to say you thought there was like really good value on Walker. And spoiler alert, I've bet Jacoby, so I was concerned for a second there. But no, I completely agree with you on that one. Yeah, it's an interesting card. I wasn't really that excited for it going into it, going into tape or anything. But now that like the lines have kind of settled, there's a lot of eye-catching lines. You look at them and you're like, oh, that doesn't. Wow, that looks like value on the underdog, just because so many of the big favorites here are like a little bit sketchy. Like Kong Wang, we don't know a whole lot about her grappling. I mean, Claudia Sagula is, you know, a questionable fighter at the best of times. Donchenko is completely unknown to us. Jean Matsumoto is, you know, a well-respected fighter. He's like 17-1 or something, and he's like a plus 200 underdog. So there's a lot of fights where there seems to be a lot of talking points, but yeah, overall, I kind of struggled to find a whole lot of underdogs that I actually liked. So I guess I just couldn't get there. So, but yeah, I'm interested to watch it all go down. It's going to be a fun card, I think, which is surprising for me because I'm usually a big Apex hater. So maybe I'm converted in 2026. Who knows? Anyway, let's crack on.
Yeah, so we're going to focus on the top three fights on the card, but as the guys mentioned, this is like pretty good for a lineup for an Apex card. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I think some of the lines are just really bizarre. I don't know. It's just me, perhaps, but I feel like there's a lot of like potential value on some of these dogs. I'm just gonna like single out Eduarda Mora. I haven't bet on her, but I just like think plus 285 against a Chinese kickboxer. That just strikes me as a bit odd. I know that Kong Wang is like all the rage, so I won't say anything else. I mean, even the Alex Morono one, I mean, I think with that price of minus 550 on Daniel Donchenko, he's got to finish him in the first round, or he's not going to seem like value. So, yeah, I think, you know, Alex Morono's a vet. He's been around a long time. You know, we saw vets don't always survive it with Salkilled in the last card, so who knows? But yeah, the Matsumoto line as well strikes me as wide. With that, anyway, let's go straight into the main event, Bautista against Oliveira, and I think Josh is going to take us through this one.
Yeah, it's my time to shine, and I'm not talking about my bald head. Bautista and Oliveira really stood out to me as one of those fun matchups that anyone wants to watch. I mean, we all want to watch a fast-paced, high-cardio fighter like Bautista fight a kind of lanky, kind of long, heavy-hitting Oliveira. But when you go into like the deeper parts of this fight, you know, with Bautista in his striking, he's got a fairly good boxing for a MMA fighter. He uses his in and out style fairly well. he always stays at jab and kick distance, even if he's not really throwing anything. So he's always in that position to defend and retaliate accordingly. His footwork is also fairly fundamental to his success, as he always relies on that kind of Gastelum hopping into range to strike and then retreating or resetting at kicking range again. That kind of footwork is going to be absolutely important when it comes to fighting Oliveira, whose entire striking base is just throwing heavy and throwing hard. I mean, I can't really see any fancy striking from Oliveira apart from big wild punches. Bautista tends to attack the body a lot. I think that's going to be his main key here. So if Dom could go to the next slide, I kind of did a little random thingamajiggy here. So as you can see, half of the shots that I don't know how to really pronounce this, so bear with me. But like as you can see, the Pachi mix fight, half of the shots that he lands pretty much goes to the body. So 55% to the head, 10% to the leg, 65% total. 33% to the body, all that weird math shit. That's probably wrong. Anyway, if you watch a lot of Bautista's fights, you notice that he goes to the body a lot, and that's going to be a massive problem for Oliveira, who is not used to 4 to 5 rounds of action. Right? His style is to throw heavy, to throw hard. But if Bautista can attack the body, which therefore disrupts Oliveira's breathing, makes him a bit stunned here and there, makes him lower his guard, lower his shell, I do believe that Bautista is going to land more repetitious shots to the head, and that's just going to add up over time. I don't think Bautista is going to really get a finish here. I think we're going to see a bit of a long fight, and really, when it comes to the finishes, I do think that kind of leans on the side of Oliveira here. I mean, power puncher and all that stuff. So if Dom can go to the next slide there, but sorry, Dom, I'm so bossy. As you can see there, I'm not trying to make this quick or anything, but when it comes down to this fight, it's fairly simple to break down. Body shots versus power shots. It's that kind of fight. I mean, we could talk about the wrestling. Bautista's got very good wrestling. His entire base is wrestling. But Oliveira apparently has good takedown defense. I haven't really come to a conclusion about if he's going to get taken down. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. Maybe in the later rounds he will. I don't know. Maybe the knee will be the factor here. That's not really something I've computed, But I do think that if this fight goes Bautista's way, we are going to see an over 3.5 round bet hit. His cardio, if you watch his fights, you notice that his cardio kind of hints towards him being a good 5-round fighter. I mean, after 3 rounds, he looks fine. He looks like Marab almost, right? He looks like someone who can fight at a high pace for 5 rounds fine. And I think if Oliveira's chin holds up, or if his abdomen holds up well, I do think that we are going to see Bautista's numbers tick up quick, whilst Oliveira's numbers, don't, because he's going to be on the defensive a lot, I suppose, in this fight. The other bet for Bautista here would be the most significant strikes. I mean, I don't know how many bookies or whatever have that prop, but if it's there, I suggest taking it, because this fight just it screams to me that Bautista is going to be the one who is going to be putting on the pressure, putting on the pace, and just tagging up the body and head of Oliveira. It's just been the way Bautista fights. I can't see any deviance from that here. I mean, I get that Oliveira is the scary new prospect who has kind of blasted his way into the viewership, to the eyes of the casuals out there, but I do not think that he's going to pose much of a threat against Bautista. And if he does, I do suspect that he's going to probably find the chin of Bautista in the first or second round. So that's the only opening issue I have with Bautista, is that in some of his fights, he's a bit too casual, right? He gets too comfortable doing the same thing over and over again. And we've seen with the Patchy Mix fight, he got caught with a head kick here and there. He gets caught sometimes. And you can't get caught against Oliveira. I mean, Patchy Mix doesn't have any power in his hands. Oliveira does. He can knock out a bull or someone looking like a bull, right? I think the first 2 rounds via KO for Oliveira is the thing to take here if you want to bet on Oliveira. Me, I'm considering him as an alt bet, but personally, as a pick and as a more confident kind of bet thing, majiggy, Bautista's the way to go. He's a veteran. He has been at the top of the food chain for a while now, and I think that he has a fairly good run to the title if he defeats Oliveira here. Yeah. Any takers here? Anything to say, guys? Or
go ahead, Will.
Yeah, I agree pretty much with the like trajectory that you highlighted for the fight. It does very much feel to me like a if it goes longer, it's Bautista, but obviously the early threat of Oliveira is one to be respected. And I think that like all of the conversation surrounding this fight, all of the look at the betting line kind of really typifies that as well. So for me, it's not a fight that I've been sort of super interested in looking at in great detail, just because to me it looks like everyone's sussed it out pretty well. Yeah, Bautista's a weird one to me. He's one of those guys that's very kind of unassuming. Every single time he's taken a step up in competition or, just had his next fight, it's always seemed like an adequate step up, and he's looked okay, he's looked good. He's just sort of slowly progressing, but not really setting the world alight with any of his performances. Whereas Oliveira is kind of doing the opposite in that he's just like really making people pay attention to him with his wins and the way that he's like fighting. So it's one of those sort of cautionary positions where I feel like I was expecting a lot of more people to be keen on Oliveira because he is that kind of flavor of the month, exciting fighter kind of thing. In a way, this fight has like quite a lot of similarities to last week, Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. Like not in a not like a 3-dimensional comparison, but just that you have an exciting, dangerous kind of like highlight reel kind of guy versus someone who's very composed and professional, who sort of goes out and gets wins cleanly. And I feel like the result's going to be similar in that, Oliveira is going to swing and like have some like scary moments where, if he connected, that would have been lights out. But if being the key word, and I just think Bautista's gonna get to a comfortable point. Come round 3, he'll have been competitive. He may have won one of the first 3 rounds, but I think Oliveira's the sting on his punches and the explosiveness will kind of slow down a little bit. And I think that, assuming he doesn't fight very differently, he'll be demonstrating that kind of dangerous could knock out a bull style will kind of become his worst enemy in the championship rounds, and I think Bautista will take over. I'm quite confident that Bautista is the winner of rounds 4 and 5, regardless of whether or not he finishes or not. So I think that, in a 25-minute bout, he therefore only needs to win one more round and survive. So for me, I think Bautista is definitely the side here. Dom, how about you? Anything contrary to say, or are you also on the Bautista side?
Yeah, like you, I was hoping that because of the fandom of Vicinius Oliveira that they would line it close. I thought maybe we might get like -140 on Bautista, but no. I mean, it did open +120, like -120, something like that, but it straight away blew out. So there is some money trickling in on Vicinius Oliveira, so he's +160 at the moment. Maybe he reaches +150, but yeah, I think it's about where it should be. I think it could be like, I think Bautista could look better than a -200, really. Like for all the reasons that you've said. Yeah, the attacking the body, he's got the cardio. I don't know if you mentioned like Vicinius sometimes looks like he's gassing. I mean, he hides it quite well, and he's one of these guys who seems to be able to keep fighting when he's gassed. There are some fighters who, even though they look like they're sucking air like DDP, that they somehow can attack at the same intensity that they did at the beginning of the fight. So I don't know. I mean, I am kind of, as listening to you guys speak, having some buyer's remorse on the under 4.5 that I took. I was like, oh man, this is a decision fight, isn't it? Like, why did I do that? I just thought the under 4.5 would capture the finishing upside of Oliveira. And I thought that, looking at Bautista, and I mean, both these guys have been going to decision recently, right? So that's worth mentioning. But the last 5 of Bautista's fights have gone to decision, and the last 3 of Oliveira's fights have gone to decision. So it does seem to be going to decision. But the variable, you mentioned is that neither of these guys have actually been in a 5-round fight. So I'm hoping that as we enter the championship rounds, one of them or both of them are getting a little bit crazy or a little bit gassy. So that would be good, so that the fight could end. It would be good if the fight could end after halfway through the 4th round, so that Josh's bet hits, and before the final 2.5 minutes. That's what I hope happens now. So I don't have much to add here. Just to say, I think Bautista is, for me, the more proven fighter. I think he's the better fighter. But as you mentioned, with less power. So I think once he gets past the initial threat, I just can't see, like Will said, I can't see Vicinius winning the first 3 rounds, and then he hasn't demonstrated the best cardio. I think he's a pretty big guy for the weight class. Although here in the on the stats here, you can see they're both 5'9", so, and similar reach. But I think Vicinius is still, he's cutting more weight. I'd say he's a bit more muscly, a bit more bulky, and he tends to struggle at the end of round 3. So I think, and Bautista doesn't. So I think that read is, for me, it feels pretty accurate. Don't have anything else to say beyond that. It was a great breakdown, Josh. Let's go to the co-main, and that would be myself. So the co-main is Amir Albazi, who is from Iraq originally. Then he grew up in Sweden and then moved to the UK. And on the other side of the coin, we have Kyoji Horiguchi, who is a Japanese fighter who was in the UFC. He's also been in Rizin and Bellator, and he has a phenomenal record, actually. Horiguchi was 8-1 in the UFC. He only lost to Mighty Mouse, and then in Rizin he went similar, 10-1. He was actually 2-2 in Bellator, but he's like a well-versed mixed martial artist. He's more of a karate style striker, but in recent years he's been mixing in wrestling to great effect. So I was watching some of his recent fights in Rizin, and against Zulu, who he fought in Rizin in December 2024. He basically just took that guy down and held him down for 3 rounds. But the interesting thing in that fight was that he did get hurt on the feet. So he kind of got flash knocked down onto one knee in the first round by Zulu. And in the second round, as they were separating, he got caught again. And you can watch the fight and you can see he's busted up a little bit. And this Zulu guy he's not someone you want to be, telling anyone about. He's a nobody. So that wasn't a great look, but I appreciate that Horiguchi won that fight convincingly in the end with the grappling, not the striking. He also, before that, fought Sergio Pettis in a rematch. So he became a highlight reel, Horiguchi did, when he fought Sergio Pettis the first time. It was a comeback, actually. So Horiguchi was comfortably winning that fight, and then Sergio Pettis did a Hail Mary spinning back fist and knocked him out in round 4. But in the rematch, it was Horiguchi using wrestling. He trains at American Top Teams. That's probably why he's employing this wrestling approach, and he was controlling Sergio Pettis with the wrestling. But he did get knocked down in the final round of that 3-round fight. So it's not a great look to be knocked down in your last 2 fights. But as everyone knows, he fought Tagir Ulanbekov in his UFC debut, and he shocked the world as a plus 200 underdog. I think it was possibly more, actually. It could have been higher than plus 200. Tagir was a big favorite in that fight, and everyone was expecting Tagir Ulanbekov to ragdoll him, and it couldn't have been further from the truth because he put on a clinic. He just outworked Ulanbekov. But I think the one thing that you need to remember with this is I don't think Ulanbekov is going to fight at 125 again. I think that was his final fight, and he had a horrendous weight cut that it was said on the commentary for that fight, and I just don't think he's yeah, I don't think he can make that way. And I think this is what happens. Like, you can take all the performance enhancers you want, but if you are cutting too much weight, you're damaging yourself right before you're getting into a cage with another man. It doesn't seem like a good idea. So I think weight cutting is was the issue for Tag here. Not to take anything away from Horiguchi's fantastic debut, but coming on to this fight here, I'll talk a bit about Albazi on the left. He's a grappler, and that's really where he's made his bread and butter. That's how he's got a lot of his wins early in his UFC career. He's very strong. He's very powerful. He's looking to shoot takedowns. He's competent on the feet. He's not a great striker. And I think the issue I have with him in this spot is he does lack the sort of experience of Horiguchi. Horiguchi's got like nearly twice as many fights as him. UFC experience is not at such a differential, but he has less UFC experience as well, even though his last 2 fights were 5-round fights in the UFC. And then I think the most concerning thing about Albazi is he's had surgery in 2023 on his heart, which is not something you hear very often. And in 2024, he had surgery on his neck. So yeah, and his recent form, he looked pretty awful. He looked god awful in his fight against Brandon Moreno. He just obviously couldn't take him down. He just got peppered and beat up on the feet. I guess like a silver lining of that fight is that he showed that he had heart. He didn't give up on himself. He kept coming forward. He kept trying to make things happen. And the fight before that was also not a great look in the sense that it was considered one of the robberies of the year when he beat Kai Kara France. But I rewatched that fight, and the good thing about that fight, again, silver lining, was that he could strike with Kai Kara France. Not winning all of the striking, but he could catch him. He has a good jab, a good stiff jab. He has obviously knocked people out. He knocked out Alessandro Costa with an uppercut in the fight before he fought Kai Kara France. So, striking is definitely the wheelhouse of Horiguchi. The experience, obviously, we talked about that. His great movement. I think speed is a little bit questionable putting it here because he's 35, so his speed will start to decline a little bit, but he still looks fast. He looks sharp against Tagir. He was like definitely much faster than Tagir. Yeah, like I said, he's 35. I think there's some durability concerns. He's had a long career of fighting. He's battle worn. And he's winning. He's got willingness to engage here, Albazi, in an area in which he probably stands the best chance of winning. So I was trying to think how I would cap this. And if I can be assured that Albazi is fit and healthy and not in any way compromised from his surgeries and whatever. And I did watch him grappling in December. He grappled someone from Team Khabib, and he looked fine in that. Then I think he's still should be an underdog. I think like a 40-45% underdog, not this like 25% line that we're seeing here. So I think, to be honest, I think there's value in the Albazi money line at plus 300. Even if he should be an underdog, you can still say that there's value there if he's a really big underdog. And if that kind of is scary, playing like a plus 300, there are other ways you can still kind of hopefully get value out of this fight. I think that Albazi is really, really tough, and I struggle to see how Horiguchi will finish him unless it's a pure standing match. If it's a pure standing match, I think that's worrying for Albazi. Although Moreno didn't finish him 5 rounds of peppering him with jabs and hooks. So yeah, I think the finish only probably going to go to decision this fight. So I think one safe value bet might be Albazi to win a round. I think if he gets Horiguchi down, Horiguchi is very good at getting up. He pops up straight away. But Albazi won't be afraid to just shoot and reshoot. That might, and he's got a good ground and pound, and he goes for subs, so he might be able to nick around that way. So I think the plus 3.5 points, Albazi to win 1 round, is the most live of those 3 bets. So yeah, that's my breakdown, and yeah, I'll hear what you got to say on this one, Will and Josh.
Yeah, I kind of want to say something a bit quickly here because I don't have too much to say. I reckon Dom pretty much nailed all of the aspects of this fight. But Horiguchi trains out of, I think it's American Top Team or something like that. So some big, American gym, where all these wrestlers go. I do think that whilst Albazi has the grappling advantage, Horiguchi's takedown defense and his ability to lower his base and being the shorter fighter as well. I mean, one inch isn't a lot, but still. I do think all of that contributes to him maybe beating Albazi to the punch when it comes to lowering the base and defending Albazi's takedowns fairly well. The only way that Albazi can get takedowns against Horiguchi, I reckon, is by a body lock trip or some sort of judo throw, because that's typically what we see best used against wrestlers. They like to lower their base, but they also are fairly susceptible to those kinds of trips, right? But yeah, I was impressed by Horiguchi's performance against Ulanbekov. I didn't know about the whole Ulanbekov having a rough weight cut. That one surprised me. But I think Horiguchi is the go here. But I do respect Dom and his bets there. Those are solid bets to take, especially the Albazi to win one round. That's something that kind of catches my eye. But yeah, it's a fun fight. I don't know why Albazi is still fighting. I don't like him because he robbed my guy KKF from that decision win. And yeah, so Will, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of points all around. Firstly, yes, I do think Cara France got robbed. Yeah, I'm a bit of an Albazi hater myself. I think it just doesn't do anything like uniquely well for me. He's just a jack of all trades, which a lot of guys at flyweight are. But I think he shot up the division so quickly that he hit the ceiling pretty hard. And honestly, his wins and losses have gone on to age like really badly, in my opinion, to the point where I'm kind of like unsure if he's actually guaranteed to be at this level. I'm probably reaching, but like looking through his UFC wins, the Kai France one, we think that was a bit of a robbery. Alessandro Costa is a guy I've always been a hater on. He's very low volume and just not very good. Francisco Figgy was only ever in the UFC because the good Figgy was too. Zalgas Zumagulov couldn't win a decision to save his life, and Malcolm Gordon is also one of the worst UFC fighters we've ever had. Flyweight was going through a weird transition when Albazi was on the scene, and I think it had just come out of that like post Figgy Moreno 4-fight trilogy. What do you call a trilogy with 4 fights? Whatever that's called. It just, I don't know, it just felt like the standard was a little bit lower, and guys like Manel Cap and Makayev hadn't quite pushed through yet. So yeah, I guess Albazi kind of got in the limelight quicker than he should have. And I think that from this point onwards, it's going to be a downhill kind of trajectory for him when we realize that he was never actually supposed to be fighting in main events against Brandon Moreno and potentially being on the cusp of a title shot. But on the flip side, I do have to say that this fight aligns with a betting philosophy that I've identified for years and always been very wary of. And it is the unassuming debutante underdog. When you have somebody who comes in to the UFC on their debut and is like plus 200 or 250 or whatever Horiguchi was, if they come in and a lot of people don't know as much as they should about them. I mean, obviously Horiguchi's a bit of an exception because he has a very credentialed career outside of the UFC. But for the most part, the fan base didn't really know what to expect from him. But the betting line told them that they were supposed to expect him to lose, and he didn't. And he looked very good in that one. And Tagir's always been pretty overrated, in my opinion. He's only really good at one thing, and sometimes he just doesn't look very good doing that either. But I think that when somebody like Horiguchi comes in and wins as an underdog debutante, it blows people's minds. And they, for some reason, I think it's FOMO. It's the fear of missing out. They want to get on that hype train before it's too late. I mean, really, it is too late. And so what happens is in their sophomore fight, the second UFC fight, they're usually typically massive favorites. And a lot of the time they go from being severely underrated to severely overrated. And you have to be careful of that. I mean, all of the examples I can ever think of are always like prelim fighters. But like, I think back to Lando Venata when he almost KO'd Tony Ferguson. Everyone was like, wow, this guy almost beat Tony. He must be legit. And suddenly he turns out to be, barely a prelim level guy. Jordan Vucenic, more recently, shat the bed in his sophomore fight. Guram Kutateladze when he almost beat Gamrot in his debut. That was a clear example. I think he went on to lose like twice as a -300 favorite or whatever. Anyway, I digress. But I just think that like it's a betting principle that I always look at, and I think you should always be careful. If you're arriving to the party late, don't pay the very steep price of admission, basically. And I think that that's what a lot of people are doing on Horiguchi here, because I don't think you can really justify -350 or whatever he is, -400 in a very like three-dimensional, well-rounded fight where I don't think any guy has a severe weakness. I mean, the two of you have said it already, and I absolutely concur that Albazi to win a round is a very live play at +120. And if that's the case, why is Horiguchi, who probably doesn't get a finish here, why is he -400 if we expect him to lose a round? Do you know what I mean? It's just not, that doesn't add up maths wise. So I think this is a case of the books making you pay a strong price, and I wouldn't fall trap to it if it were me. So I pick Horiguchi to win, but the betting line stinks in my opinion.
Okay, and let's move on to our final fight, which Will's going to break down for us.
Talking about betting lines that stink and fighters that are showing up in their second UFC appearance, we have Jailton Almeida versus Rizvan Kuniev. This one really caught my eye. It wasn't one I was like super interested in originally because I historically have bad things to say about heavyweights, but the betting line really drew me in to breaking this one down in more detail. So in my write-up on Reddit, I wrote this one up before the betting line came out because obviously it was a short notice. It was put together at the last minute, so I guess short notice fight, and therefore the odds came out a little bit later. I kind of looked at this as like, well, people hate Jailton Almeida now. He is the bad guy of the month. So I'm maybe expecting the line to be a little bit more generous. But overall, I think Almeida probably has what it takes to win this fight, just purely on levels, at like a lazy, like surface level analysis. And then the books opened Almeida at -550, which, you know, steep as fuck. Like, wow, crazy. And it got bet down to -150, which I think is crazy the other way around. And I think it's incredibly disrespectful to Jailton Almeida that he's -150 against a guy who hasn't done anything really to deserve it. To put it shortly. And I think for me, the main issue for that is that Almeida has this bad double whammy of being both boring as fuck in his wins. Like the Volkov fight, he lost, but he looked boring as fuck in it, and that's probably why he lost it. Going 25 minutes against Derek Lewis when you have the positions that you want is criminal. He's just been getting lazy with his like time on top. He realizes that in heavyweight, it's banking that time on top is usually enough to win you a fight because dudes are so shaped like barrels they can't get up. And if you're winning the fight, why overexert yourself? Why risk going for a submission when you might lose out in the scramble and then you're back on the feet, where obviously Almeida probably has a disadvantage. And that style doesn't suit anymore, does it? I mean, the UFC's been getting more and more aggressive. Especially there are a lot of rumors going out at the moment that they're planning on cutting more fighters who aren't entertaining. So Almeida's, his neck is possibly on the chopping block in that regard. He needs to change his style. He needs to get more aggressive and use that BJJ superiority that he has. And I have a feeling that he's going to do that this time around. So the next point along that kind of explains this -150 is that Kuniev's UFC debut was against Curtis Blades, where he defended 13 of 15 takedowns. Very impressive statistic. Immediately makes you think, hello, we've got a guy who may be able to stop the grappling threat of a grappler. I can see the underlying angle there, but in my opinion, it's a massive red herring that I think that a lot of people are just taking as fact and not really looking into. Firstly, Curtis Blades, is that the same guy that we think Curtis Blades is in 2026? Because by my calculations, we haven't seen a good vintage Curtis Blades performance since 2021. Not just the fact that he's getting KO'd early by like heavy hitters. He's wrestling a lot less. He's less dominant in his wins. I'd like to think that if Blades fought someone like Kuniev like 5 years ago, he would have 30-27 and used him as a mop, like easy win. And also, like, just because these guys are wrestler grapplers does not mean that they are the same. Jailton Almeida is not the same guy as Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades does a lot of things fundamentally on the mat he doesn't do a lot of things on the mat that Jailton Almeida absolutely thrives on. And the first one is back takes. Like, Curtis Blades doesn't want to take the back. He would rather sit off to the side with the body lock to make sure that when his opponent inevitably like gets to their knees and stands up, he can just mat return. He wants to keep the wrestling position in that situation so that he can keep the top control. That's why Blades has so many takedowns in his wins. He's not take them down, establish a good position, look to advance it, hope for a scramble, then set up a submission. Like, he's literally never won by submission in the UFC. When you consider how much top control time that guy has, how has he never caught an arm triangle? How has he never got the back taken a rear naked choke? Like, it's a choice at that stage, and that is not Jailton Almeida's style. Like, even though he's not the most prolific finisher of all time, he wants to find himself a good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu submission to set up shop. And I think that when you watch that Blades versus Kuniev fight, there are clear examples of times where a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappler would have gotten a very dangerous position on Kuniev. At one point, he literally crawls on his hands and knees to the cage to get the back to get up to his feet, whilst Blades has his hands locked and has the back. Like, Jailton Almeida would have put 2 hooks in, probably gotten a rear naked choke by the end of the round. So for me, it was a case of watching that fight and pretending that Blades was Almeida and how would it go differently. And to me, I saw some very clear differences that I think people are forgetting. So I also went and watched Kuniev's fight against Renan Ferreira in PFL. And yes, he won that fight. And yes, he looked very good over 15 minutes. But he did so with his own top control after Ferreira kind of fell apart after a very competitive round 1. In my opinion, actually, no, it wasn't a competitive round 1. I skimmed through it, so I don't actually know which round was which. But there were competitive moments either way, I will say. And one of those moments was when Kuniev got swept from top position and also found himself in like a semi-locked-in armbar. Watching the scrambling moments of that fight, I was not convinced that Kuniev is going to be able to survive if he ends up like rolling with Almeida. I don't think he'll end up winning those exchanges. I just think that Almeida is a far better grappler on the mat. Again, when you consider that so much of the basis of this Kuniev fight is based off of Kuniev's performance against Curtis Blades, it's not relevant because when has Curtis Blades ever been scrambling? You know, the guy's not going to roll for an armbar, is he? Also, like, as a side point, it's not a serious one I want to make, but like, why is nobody talking about the fact that in that Blades fight, Kuniev managed to successfully get the fight he wanted, i.e. defending 13 of 15 takedowns, still got outstruck statistically, and still went to a split decision. Curtis Blades is not a hard guy to find the chin off. Like, ask any elite heavyweight, they'll KO him. Derek Lewis did it, you know? So I think everyone's talking about Kuniev from like a defensive perspective, but defensive attributes do not win you fights. And Kuniev had, you know, if Kuniev gets the same amount of time standing against against Almeida as he did Blades, there's no guarantee that he KOs him because he didn't last time. Like, it's not crazy to suggest that Almeida is a better striker than Kuniev is an on-mat grappler. So I think that people have got it a bit twisted and are just trying a bit too hard to fade Jailton Almeida, in my opinion. I think that all of the features that Kuniev shows are a little bit of a red herring. And I think that there's potential upside in the Almeida side because he knows now that his style needs to change and he needs to get a little bit more aggressive. So I think Kuniev will give him the opportunities to set up shop, take the back, probably like off the clinch against the cage or something like that. And yeah, I think Almeida gets back to winning ways, and that -150 looks a little bit hilarious. So buy low spot, recency bias, whatever you want to call it. I think Almeida is the side for me. So I'm betting him. So yeah, how about you guys? Is there anything that stands out to you in this one? Am I crazy, or is there value on Jailton Almeida at this price?
So one thing you said, Will, and I mean, I'm going to ask you a question in a second, but you mentioned that Kuniev defended a dozen or so takedowns from Blades in their fight. Typically, when it comes to takedowns, I feel like maybe the stat takers or whatever you want to call them, they get takedowns wrong. They get takedown attempts wrong. Like you know, you can have a fighter like tickle a leg and it'll be a takedown, for example, or whatever, right? So my question for you, Will, because you've done the tape and I haven't. I'm basically like copying your homework now because I still got to do my write-up. But did Blades even try to get those takedowns, or was it sloppy? Like, how many takedowns do you think were like purposeful actual attempts, or how many were just visual level changes? Like, you know, if that question made sense.
Yeah, it definitely does, and it's a good question to ask because Blades is very much that kind of guy, isn't he? Where he'll kind of just push it against the fence and then be sort of crotch sniffing, as they say. It was a lot of that mainly. I'd say like 2/3 of it was crotch sniffing. Some of them were out of distance, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time now. I've taped this fight like a week ago. Yeah, I think there's a mixture of everything. I mean, I don't disagree that Kuniev has capable takedown defense. That's definitely not the point I'm trying to make. Like I think that he will stop some of Almeida's takedowns, but I think that Blades had like a decent amount of time against the cage when he was attempting his takedowns too, and I think that Almeida should be able to find a way to get that going and get the takedown. At least the sort of he'll force him to the mat, whether or not they register it as a takedown, because again they are a bit weird with the stats there. But yeah, no, I think that's a fair question to ask.
Cool. That's all I have really for this one. Well, what about you, Don? What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, I was of the same sort of like opinion as you were when I saw the line. I was like, oh, this is crazy, disrespectful, because Almeida's usually like -400, -500. I think there is probably an element here of the public's just fed up with him now. In his like Volkov fight, that I think we all bet on him. I think he was -170 there, so he didn't have like huge amount of respect actually in the line in the Volkov fight. And yeah, I think it's what he does with his takedowns. Like you said, he needs to change his style, because just like lying on people, well, one, it's not winning him decisions anymore, because he didn't get the decision against Volkov. And I think, on balance, I think that was probably fair. I was annoyed at it at the time, but yeah, on reflection, I think he didn't do as much damage. Right? Volkov did the damage in that fight. So yeah, and I think his body of work is impressive. So yeah, I mean, but I kind of like flipped earlier today watching Kuniev, because I'm like, this guy can grapple. Like, I think that's the main issue. I think like it's not just the Curtis Blades, it's that he has a wrestler. He's a Dagestani, right? So yeah, he's from the Caucasus. He's from the mountains. And he's like a combat sambo, master of sport, whatever that is. I don't know why they always say that. He's like master of sport. What does that mean? It means he's been doing this since he was young, right? And I think he looked a little bit sloppy in some of his UFC fights, because I think he was caught doping basically, and he had to his body transformation is like pretty disgusting in the reverse. Like he looks quite ripped in the Renan Ferreira fight. And he didn't look gassed at all in round 3, so he's definitely on everything in the PFL. And then when he went on Dana White's Contender Series, just was like a blob. And like here on screen, he's kind of like in between like a blob and someone who's ripped. So I think I'll be paying quite a lot of close attention to actually physically what he looks like. I saw on Instagram a photo of him. I mean, he's not shirtless, but he looks. You can see his arms. He's looking like he's getting the definition back. So yeah, I mean that was actually a talking point on him. When he came into the UFC, people were like, "Oh, he's been caught doping now." So, and look at him, he looks terrible. Like his physique looks terrible, but he did okay in the Curtis fight. I thought it was a pretty like boring, sloppy fight that I've had to watch earlier today, and I didn't learn a lot from it, except like I guess Jailton, if he doesn't finish this fight, I just don't see how he's going to win it, because the judges are not going to give him any rounds for doing his typical shooting, reshooting. That's not going to get him anything. Like one punch from Kuniev can win him a round. And also his stand-up has looked just throughout his career pretty terrible. He looks like a person who doesn't want to strike, and if he gets hit, it completely changes his mentality in the fight. He goes into his shell. He looks scared. That's just like super worrying. So it is hard to cap a Jailton Almeida in 2026, I think, because you're right. He could just come out here. Kuniev could make a mistake and he could sub him, but he's just not really been doing that a lot recently. And yeah, you mentioned the Ferreira fight, and yeah, he did get reversed in that. And so I was watching that thing. I got excited at that point because I was watching this just a second ago. I was like, oh, yeah, look at that. Like Renan Ferreira's on top. And Kuniev just freaking powers his way out. So look at the weight differential here, 265, right? He's going to throw Jailton off him with no problem. Like this guy is huge, and he's all muscle as well. He's like all muscle now, especially if he's back on the PEDs. And I think that's the worry for Jailton. I think he's like not really a heavyweight. Basically, we all know he was a light heavyweight, and he was like a small heavyweight, so he didn't really want to cut to light heavyweight. And I think he's an absolute beast, like a natural athlete. I don't think for his size you can be any more athletic. The problem is Kuniev is going to look a lot bigger than him. And Volkov was a lot bigger than him, and it gave him issues. So that would be my main concern with Almeida at this price is, yeah, how if he doesn't get it done with his grappling, he's screwed. that's basically in a nutshell the way I interpret the tape at the moment. But I'm going to give it more thought because actually, so I had a bet on Almeida, which I haven't cashed out. It's in profit because the line moved. I think I got it like minus 130. So I got minus 130 on Almeida, and now I'm like hunting around. I'm looking at Kuniev. I'm thinking plus money in Kuniev, and I think he probably should be favourite. And maybe that's too disrespectful because I'm looking at the body of work of Almeida, and I haven't been through. Maybe I'm forgetting some of his early performances. He's had, but he's not really faced many grapplers. Actually, no grapplers. I think. Oh, Romanov, but I mean Romanov was terrible. Spivak as well, but Spivak's terrible. So I don't know. I think Kuniev could be his stiffest, like grappling opponent. Like you just mentioned, Curtis Blades is probably washed. He beat Curtis. Oh, he lost to Curtis Blades, but yeah, I think I was impressed with what I saw on the tape with his grappling. I've never seen many heavyweight grapplers, so I never know what to expect. I usually expect them that they're going to gas out, but he didn't gas out in the fights that I've seen. So yeah, I think there's a lot of unknowns here. So I don't like. I can see why you liked Almeida because initially I liked him too, but I've recently just thought, oh man, this Kuniev guy is pretty scary. So from what I've seen, if Almeida can't get it down early and often, he's for sure going to lose, right? It's standing. So yeah. Shall we move on to the bets?
Yep, sounds good.
Sure thing. So yeah, a variety of just similarly staked bets for me. Starting off at the main event, I went with Bautista moneyline and over 1.5 rounds. Just kind of buying into that angle that we talked about in that Bautista should grow into the fight the longer it goes, given that he's like minus 190 on the money line, turning that into minus 125 by just, the way he should win. I really like that. I think that's not correlated properly, in my opinion, because I don't think Bautista wins in the first 7.5 minutes. Next up, Jailton Almeida. Talked about that one enough. Just think that's a nice price. Farid Basharat by decision is the next one. I think his money line is wide. What is he like? Minus 300, minus 250. I think that's pretty wide, and that it should be a competitive enough fight. I just think that Farid is head and shoulders above, and I don't think that a finish is super plausible on his side. So minus 300, minus 250 is like 70 to 75% implied probability, whereas him winning by decision is 52% implied probability. I don't think that there's like a 20% chunk that Farid finishes in that portion of the pie. So for me, whilst I wasn't originally thinking about betting on the fight, I thought the decision line was too generous to pass. Next up, Dustin Jacoby. We kind of alluded to it in the opener. I think that Julius Walker is not very good, and whilst this is a fight that's been put together on short notice for both men, neither man is coming in on short notice because Jacoby was supposed to be fighting at UFC 325 against Jimmy Crute, who is also a wrestler grappler. So I think that Jacoby is prepared for this kind of opponent. He's so much more experienced. He's a more lethal striker, and Walker is getting like forced to do the chicken dance in both of his UFC fights against worse strikers than Dustin Jacoby, in my opinion. So I think Jacoby shows levels there. I bought into that early. It's now like minus 200. So I got good closing line value on that one, probably. Next up, Saeed Nurmagomedov against Javid Basharat. I don't really know how I feel about this one now, but at the time I didn't think that Saeed should be plus 125. It's a very competitive fight. I think everyone sort of knows the angle in that I think Saeed is the better striker, an overall better fighter, in my opinion, when they're fresh by a small amount, but he also fades late. So a decision is probably not going to happen for Saeed. I think it can, but I think he's probably 60-40 to lose a decision if it goes the full 15. But I think he's also the much more dangerous guy and the much more likely to finish. I think, he's got some sneaky kicks, which he attacks to the body and the head. He's also got a very good front choke series, which I think could cause Basharat some problems. So yeah, I think he's overall got more paths to victory than Basharat, who's very sort of decision reliant. And I think Saeed can win a decision himself. And finally, Ketlin Souza. I honestly just bet the number here. I did do a bit of tape and research on this fight. I concluded it should be a pick'em, more or less. I just thought that Bruna Brazil looks to probably be the one who can land takedowns because Ketlin Souza can't defend them to save her life. But Souza is far more aggressive and far more damaging with her strikes. So I think it could be a fight ending intent versus control time kind of fight, which I think should favor Ketlin Souza if the scorecards are being counted up correctly. But just as I kind of concluded that the money line being a pick'em was correct, loads of money came in on Souza and she moved up to like -160. So I thought maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's information out there that I don't know that favors Souza. So I decided to jump on that whilst I could. I obviously have the opportunity to arb out of it if I want to, but I probably will just stick with it because it's just another kind of like CLV position, and I'll trust the betting community at this stage. So yeah, that's all the bets I've got. I'm possibly interested in Claudia Saigula takedowns because she's predominantly a striker. Just hoping that we catch the books slipping because Priscilla Cachoeira can't defend a takedown to save her life. So hoping that that's not like -500 and that you could actually play it in some regard because she'll probably attempt one and probably land it. So might be able to get a cheeky statistic thing in there. But yeah, that's all I've got for this card. A variety of just like average plays, but some good positions I'm low-key quite confident in. I think it's going to be an interesting card. How about you, Dom? What have you got for this one?
Yeah, I like the Segula takedown because I think she's training at American Top Team, isn't she, with Kayla Harrison and is it Melissa Croden, I think? Not Melissa Croden, whoever the training partner is, some other lady who does a lot of takedowns. Could be Croden? No, not Croden. She trains in Canada. Yeah, well, I think that's very live, a takedown. Unsurprisingly here, I'm playing Albazi to win a round. You mentioned his takedown defense. He got taken down by Zulu. He got taken down by Pettis. So I don't really rate his takedown defense. I think his movement is excellent. So I think if he does a circling on the outside game, then that will make it hard for Albazi to track him. But from what I've seen, Horiguchi's a fun fighter. That's why he's got the reputation he has. He's going to come forward. And yeah, I mean, the double leg is there all day. That's how Zulu and Pettis in the last two fights pre-UFC. And Tage got him down as well. But like I say, he's going to spring back up. He's going to make it competitive. And Albazi money line, if this was like +200, I probably wouldn't be interested at all. I kind of think conservatively +200 is probably what it will look like. But yeah, +300 is just, it feels like value. I think he's the younger, hungrier fighter. If you can guarantee me that Albazi's fully fit, then I think he's got a really good chance to upset the apple cart here against an older, chinnier, battle-worn fighter who's had a brilliant debut but has looked a little bit, like he's had layouts basically in Rising. So, I think Albazi's going to be a stiff test, as Horiguchi will be for Albazi. So, should be a good fight. Matsumoto wins decision, no action. So I saw this was lined at, actually this was +300, sorry, not +200. So +300, which I just thought was absolutely insane. It's saying that all of the finishing upside on this fight is with Farid Basharat, not with Jean Matsumoto, which I think is wrong. Matsumoto's never been finished. So I just think that was probably lazy lining by the books. So yeah, like I say, it's +300, or I don't know what it is now, but Matsumoto to win inside the distance. If it goes to decision, you get refunded. I think that's pretty crazy. I'm also interested in the Matsumoto money line, to be honest, but I need to think a bit more about that. I'm happy to play the decision of action at this stage. I think I already mentioned the main event going under 4.5 rounds. I just feel like neither man has been in those championship rounds, so could be some volatility if it gets there. But it might not need to get there. Like Josh said, Oliveira's live for KO, especially when he's fresh, and Mario will just build into the fight. He's got lots of finishes on his record, not recently, but he's got a good sub game. Accumulated body damage that Josh mentioned. I think that the Mario Bautista is definitely live to finish Oliveira if he starts gassing in the championship rounds. Javid Basharat, this is a tough one for me because I think Nurmagomedov is a flashier striker, but I don't think he's necessarily all round better mixed martial artist, because I know they can both grapple, I know they can both strike. I think Basharat's very tactical, very intelligent, and very well put together. So I think this is a very competitive fight, and I capped it more like -150 for Javid Basharat, but it won't surprise me if that front guillotine choke is coming from Said Nurmagomedov. But as you already mentioned, Will, he loses decisions. He's 2-4 to the decision in the UFC, so he's won 2 decisions, lost 4. Basharat is a decisionator, so provided he can stay safe, he's definitely got the better cardio. He's definitely got better game planning, and it'll be interesting to see how he approaches the fight, given that he's coming back off a knockout loss, so that always affects confidence. I put here we'll take round 3 decision as well. I'm not sure I will actually. I mean, that was just one of the thoughts I had. Like, he could be live in round 3, but if you think he's live in round 3, you should just take the round 3 prop straight because it'll be like plus 1,000. But yeah, you could play Basharat by decision for better odds. And then it looks like we're on the other side of another bet here. Kuniev moneyline. Haven't played this yet, as I mentioned. Just been going through the tape on Kuniev. I want to do a little bit more digging on him. Just make sure that I've dotting my I's, crossing my T's. But I feel like he's probably the side here. You didn't also Jailton's coming in short notice. Although he looks like he's always ripped and always ready to go, so I wouldn't be too concerned about Jailton coming short notice. But yeah, I think this is one to keep an eye on in terms of like I mentioned the weigh-ins, Kuniev specifically, what he looks like, because if he looks more chiseled, that's definitely promising, because he's looked like a blob in the UFC so far. So yeah, I'm not sold on Kuniev 100%, but I was thinking of playing his money line. What about you, Josh? What have you got?
Well, as you can clearly see, I'm very, very well prepared. Well, not really. I mean, I got the typical layout here. Got the parlay, TBD, to be decided, or determined. And then the alt bets here, kind of. I got something here at least. Matsumoto via KO points. I like Matsumoto. I don't like him in a takedown defense perspective because that's going to be important. But I reckon as a Muay Thai fighter, I like him. Like he definitely is the one to keep an eye out on when it comes to the KO odds, or whatever you want to call them. Like I think he can make the fight exciting enough to really land something, and I hope he does, because I love a good Muay Thai fighter, right? Oliveira via KO round 1 or 2. That was suggested, in my breakdown earlier, only because I think that he possesses the power early to make this a bit of a hairy one for Bautista. Since Bautista is going to be making his reads and making, adapting to how Oliveira strikes back. And typically when it comes to alt bets, I have 4, so 2 of them are to be decided. So yeah, lazy ass shit for me. But this whole card has been a headache personally when it comes to betting. Like I'm not a gambler. Like I'm not a bettor. So like when it comes to numbers and betting, like I'll look at the picks first and not like the odds. So yeah, lazy, but my bad.
Yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the episode, and I think there's going to be some upsets this week, and that's my take on it. I don't know how many upsets there'll be or how many underdogs will win, but I feel like at least one big underdog is going to win this weekend, and I can't say with full certainty who it's going to be. But yeah, it'd be good to see this first Apex card, and then we'll be back to break down and give you our early leans on the next card in a few days' time.